Senator Murkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for the hearing this morning. Thank you to our witnesses. We've heard some of the stories of tough fire season. We had another tough fire season in Alaska. 3,107,378 acres burned so far. Apparently, there's still some active within the state. And then something that we haven't seen before. We saw two of the largest tundra fires on record in this state. So we are paying attention as we always do. I think we made some good progress with the infrastructure bill that we passed in terms of providing some additional resources and authorities. And so a couple questions for both Mr. Rupert and Mr. Crockett this morning. In the infrastructure bill, we provided both DOI and Forest Service around $600 million to be made available for salaries and expenses of federal wildland firefighters between FY22 and FY26. So can you tell me how much of these funds are still available? It's my understanding that we're going to be looking at what we're calling in the approps world a funding cliff in FY 2024. So how much is still available, and then what's the long-term strategy for both the departments in ensuring that we don't have this type of a funding cliff for firefighter salaries once the funding from the IIJA runs out? So Mr. Crockett and then Mr. Rupert.
So thank you for the question, Senator. So I don't have the exact number on how much is left, so we'll have to follow up with you on that.
Okay.
But we did prioritize increasing the salaries for the first 2 years for our firefighters. And it's a top priority for the administration. And what we'd like to do is just follow up with you on a creative solution for finding a long-term solution.
Have the increased salaries resulted in better either recruitment or retention?
Don't know those numbers just yet.
It's
but
still probably early.
Yeah, do know that we have a lot of satisfied firefighters as a result of them getting the funds earlier rather than stretching it out over the 5-year period.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Rupert?
Yes, thank you. And just to reinforce, we are literally locked together on this issue as we're implementing that additional pay support this year. We've largely both talked about the math is working out that the support that we have in infrastructure for this temporary pay support we're projecting will last the 2 years, and at least in interiors we've tracked that funding over the course of this year. That's sort of the path that we're on, and focus on identifying a long-term solution. There's a laser focus on that. We have all hands on deck, working very closely together, and then also with OPM on that. And our vision is that long-term solution is ready to go, and there's essentially a seamless transition from infrastructure pay support to a long-term solution is the vision that we have.
Well, if both of you can get back with us just in terms of how much of the funds from IIJA are still available to you. I think that maybe not from this committee's perspective, but from my approps hat, that would be helpful for us to know. And then also very quickly, because I have another question that I want to get to here, but both the DOI and USDA got $50 million to assist in workforce training for non-federal firefighters and for our native village fire crews. You know, this has been an issue that I've been pushing for some time. And can you give me any kind of a quick update in terms of that funding and what the departments have done to help build out, whether it's native village fire crews or for our non-federal firefighters?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have those numbers at my fingertip as well, and I'll have to follow up with that.
All right, we'll wait for those then, too.
Just to add a little bit to that, in Interior, we very recently allocated training funding to support work out at the fire center, out at NIFC with the National Wildfire Coordinating Group to update qualifications and standards, and all of that is foundational to the training that we provide across the entire interagency community. So it's work that that will be ongoing that benefits the entire interagency community. We also have recently allocated some support for additional training capacity within Interior with the Bureau training officers that has a strong connection to much of the online training system that we've developed and that we're jointly utilizing that reaches well beyond just federal firefighters.
Okay. Know that I'm going to keep pushing everybody all the time on our Native Village fire crews. There's nobody that knows the ground better than these folks. They live out there. They know what's happening. And when you talk about online, I know we're making great headway with what we put in the infrastructure bill with broadband, but online training for many out in the rural areas like that, this doesn't work. I want to very quickly ask a question, and I'm going to ask the indulgence of the chairman on this one, because this is something that came to me just yesterday, and this is a Forest Service pressurization requirement for air tanker services. So it's my understanding that the Forest Service is set to release updated requirements for firefighting suppression aircraft on their multiple award task order contract, and that for the first time they're requiring a pressurized cabin in firefighting aircraft. This previously, as I understand, was a consideration, but it was not a requirement. And I have looked at questions that have been asked to the Forest Service about, can you provide research studies or investigation in terms of why we are imposing this new requirement? Can you really show that pressurization drastically reduces crew fatigue, results in greater safety? And I have to say, I'm a little bit surprised by the response that I see from Forest Service here that says that pressurized aircraft do not guarantee safety, less fatigue, or fuel efficiency, but it does make these possible when an aircraft has it. It effectively looks like they say the Forest Service is committed to safety, fatigue management, using less fossil fuel when possible to combat climate change. But I guess I'm looking at that and saying, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we get to a quick response. We want to get the fire out quickly. We obviously want to do it safety, safety, safety. But I look at this, and it seems that if you've got regulations like this that are potentially going to result in fewer air tankers available to rapidly respond and to suppress the fires, doesn't this then delay the response to the fires and then result in a wildfire that's just going to produce more greenhouse gases than you're supposedly worried about saving with fuel efficiency? I'm trying to understand the logic here, and I don't understand why it has gone from a factor for consideration to now seemingly a requirement with not a lot of hard rationale to it.
So I don't have a lot of details around the pressurization component of your question, but what I will say is that focus. So yes, we would like to have more aviation assets available to us so that we can be responsive to the fires when the fire bell rings. And we want to do that in a manner that is safely done, as you mentioned in your statement. So we'll have to follow up with you on the specifics for the pressurization question. But I do know the focus around safety is priority for us.
As it should be. I guess I would just ask you to follow up with us, because it's my understanding that this is going to be going into place like in a matter of days, if not weeks, if not days. It's further my understanding that there were no Administrative Procedure Act process here, like publishing a notice in the Federal Register for public comment before imposing this. So I've got a lot of questions here. If
second round.
if there wasn't adequate input, we'd certainly like to understand that.
I'll do second round if you want. And real quick, I'll just go to
Okay.
Catherine and come back.
Sure.
Senator